Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Day we hustle, but the night we know that they ride or die. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel, Mishi Mish. So this is gonna be my first video on this channel. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna do a story time. So I am American, but I grew up in a Jamaican household, both sides of the family. So growing up, on my mother's side of the family, I always heard this story that happened that I'm gonna share with you. And it's one of them supernatural type, crazy ghost story type things. And I'm the type of person, if I can't see it, you don't exist. I'm definitely that kind of person. However, that's how, I have to think like that because if I can't explain it, if I don't think like that, it's gonna freak me out. I've had my own situations that I'm like, okay, that's kind of strange. But anyway, I'm gonna tell you this story. So my mother's side of family, know them come from Trelawney in Jamaica. This is a story of me here growing up from my grandmother, straight from the horse's mouth, because she lived it. First, I used to hear it from my mom, but then I got it directly from my grandma because she lived it. And it happened to her and her sister, but it happened to them. So they is my granny Sissy and her two kids, my grandma and her sister, and they were tight. I mean, it was just them against the world. There was no male in the household. It was just them against the world. So they had went to the market, I think. I think it was all of them that went to, if I hear it correctly. No. My grandma had went to the market or some store or something, some shop, and she, buy her cigarettes and all that. Because my grandma was a little hot stuff in her young days or whatever. So, and this was before she had kids, all that. This was, So my grandma had went and she got herself some cigarettes and I think some beer or whatever. And this lady there, she made some sly comment about my grandma and then must have called her a shop rat or whatever and whatnot. So my grandma and my granny and my aunt, they're very defensive of each other. So my grandma went and told her mother, and her and my grandma, my granny Sissy, my grandma and my aunt went back down to where this lady was and cursed that lady out to filth. I mean, cuss her, be a bad word, all of that. Cursed her out. So after all that in front of everybody and the woman shame, she said, well, yeah, I'm gonna fix you, whatever. This all happened, I think, in the 50s or some shit like that. 50s, yeah, them times. So she was like, yeah, I'm gonna fix you. So, they basically cursed out and left her there or whatever. So fast forward like maybe a week or a couple weeks later or whatnot, and grandma said, because my grandma was married at the time, so grandma said that her and her husband were at home and they heard 3 knocks at the door. Knock, knock, knock. And then the grandma said when she opened the door, nobody never did it. So she locked by the door, but she noticed that the dogs are barking like crazy, all this stuff. Ain't paying no mind. So then the next day, she goes down to where my granny and my aunt's living, because my aunt's her little sister. She was still living with my great grandmother at the time, because it was my grandma was the only one who was married and out the house, but they lived close to each other and they remained close. So she went to go tell her what happened last night or whatnot, and how weird it was. And my granny was telling her that she was talking to my granny. And the next thing they heard like some weird, like a bubbling noise and some fumbling or whatnot. And my aunt was in the back. She was washing clothes in the back. Next thing you know, they see her head down in the basin with the suds and all that down there. I have fits and all them something there. So they, grabbed her up, put her in the bed or whatever. And she said she had to go to the bathroom. Goes to the bathroom. Them time them have old house and them thing. They got a bathroom. And you're a ball out. When them got, them said she did turn upside down in the pit toilet and because her hips were so wide, she didn't drop all the way in. So they was like, nah, something ain't right. Because, she don't usually act like that, whatever. So my grandma was like, you know what? Make sure you come stay with me on George. That was my grandfather. Rest his soul, God rest his soul. Come stay with me on George for the night. So she goes home with my grandma. And they in the house. And grandma said everybody went to bed. Then they smelled like a burning smell. And when they went, because my aunt was sleeping in the living room. When they went to the living room, my aunt was burning up under the blanket. And the blanket, they not burn. Yes. Like our body that burn up on the blanket, they not burn. So, they ripped the blanket off of her and, get the fire. Her body was all burnt up. Got the fire, extinguished the fire. Her body was all burnt up. So the next day they brought her to this church. This some man, I think I don't even know, some church thing or whatever. And they had her buried up in mud up to her neck or some shit like that for like 7 days. Some to the socks. Because she was like badly burned. And I heard that when they brought her up there, the man said he saw a man with them as they were driving up there. He was like, Mr. The man in another car with you. I mean, and let me tell you, every time I heard this story, it would freak me out because it's so scary. And they tell it like, when they would tell it, it was when, especially my grandma would tell it like it just happened yesterday. So he said, there's a man in a hat. Back in them days they wore them, them top hats, how men used to dress back then. So anyway, they end up going to, I don't know, a seer. I don't even know. Anyway, to go find out what's what. So they go, and the man I tell him say, somebody set like a spirit on my grandmother. But my grandmother, them say our spirit cross. So like she didn't have too much strength for the Duppy to work on her, whatever was gonna do. So instead of attack the person closest to her, which was my aunt. My aunt could fight. That was her thing. She was a fight. My grandma was the one to curse you out for filth. And when she cursed, when my granny cuss you, you feel that more than if somebody thump you. But my aunt was the one who was to fight. But she was weak with mentally, she was weak. So it attacked her and latched onto her. And they say when you do them dark black magic thing, that when you raise spirit and thing, that they have to do what it came to do, because if it don't, then it go, come back to you or whatever. So it couldn't get to grandma, so I went to her sister, my aunt. So, a bunch of terrorizing and all of that. And they end up sending her away. And when they end up sending her away, and the Duppy couldn't get to my grandma, the Duppy turned back. It ended up being a curse that she set her husband on my grandma. So when he couldn't get to my grandma, whatever, and my aunt went away, so he couldn't get there, he turned back to the same woman who raised him and turn her mad till she died. I mean, and for years, because my aunt ended up coming up here to America and all kinds of stuff. So, like when my mother said she would, by the time they got old, she was born, and her cousins or whatever, little kids, and they know that house or whatever. But she said every time you would run past her, also you would hear the woman in there said, because her husband was called Jimmy, and she would be like, La Jimmy, leave me alone, Jimmy. Like he was tormenting the shit out of her. And my mother said that she did that dab shit, like she was shit, and then take the shit and be writing on the walls with it, all that, like terrorized her till she died. So that was a Duppy story that, I mean, every time I hear it, it just freaks me out, because I'm like, that shit should be a horror movie. Like, I think I've only had one weird occurrence, and honestly, funnily enough, that shit happened like 1920, maybe like 3 years ago. Yeah, about 3 years ago. Right out here in Florida. I was in my apartment, and it was like 1 a.m. and I'm watching a movie. And I hear, bow! Like something shattered. So I figured maybe something broke in one of the shelves, dropped by something or something. So I get up and I go in the kitchen. And I don't, I'm looking under the shelves, came off the wall and nothing like that. So I'm like, okay, what the hell? So I'm starting to open cabinets. I want to say, When I opened my bottom cabinet, I had 3 Pyrex dish, right? On the bottom shelf, the bottom of the cabinet. No shelf or nothing in there, but 3 Pyrex dish. You had the small, the medium, and the large. You know how they come stacked. You get them at Walmart in a pack like that. The one all the way to bottom, that large one, just bust out of nowhere. Bust. I mean, check out the video. Let me just look at the video of how it looked when I saw it. Girl, look at this shit. I heard bow last night. I looked at my shit and look. I don't know what the shit just exploded in the fucking cabinet last night. So now I gotta go clean all this up, make sure ain't no glass in the rest of the pots, girl. Bye. I'm telling you, some crazy ass shit. That, and to now I can't explain it. So that's probably the only weird thing that I've experienced in my end, when it comes to that weird stuff. And honestly, I was not scared. I mean, if I fear nothing, I was just like trying to bust my brain to figure out a logical reason for that happening. And to know, I can't find none. But I guess my spirit may be crossed too. I don't know. But yeah, don't Duppy not run me out of my house. Me always hear the elders in my Jamaica say, no Duppy, if you're afraid of a live man. So yeah. But thanks for listening to my story time. Stay tuned for a next one. And yeah, just get familiar. If you like this, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you want to subscribe and see some more story times or whatnot, because that's going to be more my thing. And get to know me. See you guys.